All night, the snow-covered suburb of Mannheim was plunged into absolute silence. The only sound was the hysterical whisper of a 911 dispatcher on the phone. That whisper was confessing to murder. In 10 minutes, police would encounter a scene that would forever be imprinted on their memories. Outside her home, a 14-year-old girl was washing blood from her hands, scrubbing it with snow, while in her bed, a 19-year-old girl lay defenseless at the Galizas. Due to severe cerebral palsy, she could neither escape nor call for help. The most terrifying thing lay in the virtual world. While the adults slept next door, social media continued to broadcast the ideal life of a happy family. It was they who transformed a real live nightmare into a shocking internet series. The Miller family lived in the small Pennsylvania town of Mannheim. Such quiet, cozy places are often chosen to raise a family far from the hustle and bustle of big cities. As a rule, everyone knows each other here. Such places are very safe, but this is not always the case. Married couple Mark and Mary Miller were described as decent, calm people. They could always be relied upon. Chitta Miller was actively involved in the city life. They intended to start a large and strong family, but not everything in their life was so simple. During the late stages of pregnancy, Maria learned of a developmental disability in her child. She decided not to terminate the pregnancy. Thus, they gave birth to a girl, whom they named Helen. She was diagnosed with cerebral palsy. Due to health problems, the girl needed special care and increased attention from her mother and father. 5 years later, in 2007, the Millers had a second daughter. She was named Claire. The youngest daughter was born healthy and later began to help her parents with the care of her older sick sister. Even by the age of 19, the eldest daughter of the family, Helen, was confined to a wheelchair and could not care for herself. She could not eat, dress herself, or communicate with others by being. She barely spoke. Helen interacted with others through nonverbal communication, specifically nodding her head, saying yes or no. Her mother and father were loving parents. They cared for their children and tried to provide them with everything they needed. They did everything they could to ensure that Helen could live a normal life, but this required a tremendous amount of effort. The girl attended a special center located in a neighboring town. Every Monday, her father took her to the center. There, she lived until the weekend. Specially trained people worked with her. Helen was there surrounded by other patients with cerebral palsy, interacting with them. Then her father took his daughter home on Friday evenings so that Helen could spend the weekend with her parents and sister. All this was difficult, but they tried and did not give up. The family's youngest daughter, Claire, attended a regular local school where she excelled in her studies and delighted her parents with her success. She was described as very hardworking, responsible, kind, and attentive to others. All these qualities were instilled in Claire from childhood, so she could help her older sister, Helen. Claire was very goal-oriented. She dreamed of obtaining a higher education, finding a decent, well-paying job, and building a successful career, which is why she studied so diligently. Claire devoted most of her time to education. In 2020, thanks to her efforts, she achieved a university scholarship. She also had other interests appropriate to her age. Claire created a TikTok account. She enjoyed short, engaging videos that helped her take her mind off her studies and the challenges of everyday life. There, Claire began recording dance videos and gradually gained an audience. At the time of this story, she had 22,000 followers. For her, this page became a kind of outlet, a place where she could express herself. Her passion for videos did not prevent Claire from actively participating in family life. Her youngest daughter helped her mother and care for Helen. When her sister spent time at home on weekends, Claire's life seemed quite normal, but in reality, it was anything but. It later emerged that Claire had difficulty socializing with her peers. She was overly shy, even withdrawn. She rarely interacted with classmates and was reluctant to open up. She rarely talked about her problems, It even seemed as if Claire prioritized other people's problems over her own. For a while, she even experienced online harassment, but eventually, everything worked out. Then Claire began to question her gender identity and even told her parents that she felt uncomfortable being a girl. She believed she wanted to be born a boy. Her parents dismissed this as some kind of adolescent whim related to adolescence. But later, it became clear she needed help. Her parents, concerned about her lingering identity crisis, began seeing a therapist. Autist. After several visits, Claire's condition stabilized. She herself stated this several times. Claire stopped thinking about wanting to be a boy, and the problem seemed to go away. The therapist attributed this to the impact of a difficult adolescence. Claire simply needed increased attention from her parents. Then came the COVID-19 pandemic of 2020. Lockdown was imposed. Everyone stayed home. Claire barely interacted with anyone except her parents. Seeing a psychologist was impossible. The potential isolation and lack of outside support significantly contributed to what followed. Around midnight, on February 22, 2021, Claire Poulier called 911. She called Senito, screaming and crying into the phone. It was difficult to understand what she was saying. When the operator finally managed to understand her words, Claire made a shocking confession. She said she had killed her sister in the heat of a fight. Several police officers arrived at the address. 14-year-old Claire, her clothes covered in blood, met them on the street. The girl waved and pointed toward the house. The girl recounted how she had stabbed her sister, Helen, with a knife. She said her sister was in the bedroom. Given her bloody clothes, it seemed as if something terrible had indeed happened in the house. The patrol officers noticed several bloody footprints in a snowdrift near the house. They believed Claire had tried to clean her hands in the snow. The officers entered the house and woke Claire's mother and father, who were unaware of what was happening. The parents were sleeping peacefully in their room and hadn't heard the attack. It turned out Claire hadn't even tried to wake them or told them what had happened. The Millers were frightened by the police and initially thought an intruder had broken in, but it turned out to be much worse. The officers advanced through the dark house, guns drawn. The patrol officers initially didn't believe Claire that she had killed her sister and thought a killer might be lurking in the house. In Helen's bedroom, they found the girl lying on the bed. There was a large amount of blood around her. A pillow was covering her face. After removing it, detectives found a bloody body with no signs of life. Helen had suffered multiple stab wounds to the neck and upper chest pattern. Her hands were raised near her head. Her clothes and bed were soaked in blood. A knife remained in her neck. The perpetrator was likely frightened by his actions and covered everything with a pillow. Since no one else was in the house, their suspicions about Claire were confirmed. When asked why the pillow was needed, she stated that she couldn't bear to watch. Those who arrived at the crime scene and paramedics attempted to render aid to the victim, but alas, it was futile. Helen had already died. She had suffered several fatal wounds and quickly bled out. There were no signs of forced entry or intruders in the house. All of this confirmed Claire's involvement in the crime. Judging by the victim's body position, Helen attempted to resist her sister, but due to her weakness, she was unable to do anything. The Millers were shocked by what happened. The mother burst into tears. She couldn't understand how her younger daughter could attack her sister. According to the caller, an argument ensued between her and Helen, which eventually escalated into a fight. Claire was allegedly forced to defend herself, accidentally overreacted, and killed her sister. This all sounded unconvincing, and even the parents didn't believe the younger daughter's story. Helen was completely harmless and weak. She wouldn't have had enough strength to attack her sister for her to need to defend herself. It was also unclear where the knife had come from in the room. Clearly, it hadn't fallen into Claire's hands by accident. The parents claimed they hadn't noticed any conflict between the sisters. Claire loved her sister and always helped her care for her. Opposite of none of the household members could have expected such a horrific turn of events. However, several factors spoke in Claire's favor. A cold-blooded killer who felt no remorse for her crimes wouldn't have covered her victim's face, called the police, and begged for help. Claire seemed deeply distressed by the tragedy. All these circumstances confirmed that Claire had a strong connection with the deceased and now regretted her death. It seemed that everyone had gone to their rooms that evening and gone to bed. Some time later, Claire went to the kitchen, took a knife, attacked Helen, and stabbed her to death. Then she covered the victim's face with a pillow and called 911. The motive for the crime was completely unclear. Claire couldn't explain anything. Then a surprising moment occurred. After Claire's breakfast was brought to she calmly said, McDonald's. I would have killed someone sooner if I'd known I'd get breakfast like that. These words shocked everyone. The detectives who began investigating this complex case listened to the recording of Claire's 911 call. They tried several times to decipher her words. This also raised many questions. It seemed that Claire had watched too many Halloween movies where Michael Myers killed his sister with a knife, and inspired by this, said on the phone, Michael Myers. Michael Myers. I killed my sister? Claire was probably not herself, but it didn't end there. Afterwards, she sent a message to her friends with the text, I'm so sorry. I just killed my sister. News of this crime shocked everyone in the city. Such a thing had never happened here before, and locals were outraged by what happened. They couldn't understand how Claire, a smart and excellent student who had so actively helped her mother and sister, could have killed her. Investigators worked hard on the case, gathering information to understand the motive for the attack. There were many circumstances that complicated the investigation. Claire's age, the victim's condition, the family relationship between them. The crime seemed a spontaneous and unmotivated act of aggression on the part of her younger sister. Claire had no addictions that could have caused her aggression. She grew up in a happy, intact family and had no previous history of aggression. Everyone who knew Claire couldn't believe that she had killed her sister. Detectives discovered that Claire had recently been actively maintaining her TikTok page and paid close attention to her videos. They tried to latch onto these videos somehow to understand the motive for the murder. 14-year-old Claire had more than 22,000 subscribers. She made videos about dancing, anime, and various popular trends. When the news broke about her sister's murder, interest in Claire's account increased sharply. In the days following her arrest, more than 30,000 subscribers subscribed to Claire's page. They wanted to follow the developments. Meanwhile, Claire, although she had previously confessed to killing her sister, denied her guilt. She cited her mental state. Claire even began actively showing signs of mental illness, but few believed this. Investigators examined her TikTok page and discovered several negative videos that the girl had posted a few days before the murder. Previously, she had posted positive dance videos, but then she posted several depressing videos. In one video, the girl began to complain about her father's lack of understanding regarding the filming of Claire's videos. The girl was offended by a father who didn't support her hobbies. But this video didn't seem like a cry for help from a teenager in a difficult situation. Everyone dismissed it as just a minor family disagreement, something that happens to everyone. And there was nothing dangerous about it. No one raised the alarm. Due to such increased attention to the page of Claire, who killed her sister, TikTok blocked her account. TikTok support team explained this by finding a violation of the community guidelines due to the prohibition of propaganda and participation in violence. Social media users speculated that the blocking of Claire's page was related to the video of a bloody toy that Claire shared. Others believed there was nothing dangerous in it that could incite violence. Some of Claire's videos were even downloaded and shared by other people on their own pages as scaring others with them motive. The most attention was drawn to the bloody glove and the totoy giraffe in the snow. Users speculated that these videos were filmed after the murder, but the exact orthography of the videos could not be determined, though it worked. The events primarily affected Claire's parents. The Millers lost both their daughters in an instant. One died, and the other, the culprit of the tragedy, was arrested. The mother claimed to love both daughters. She believed the younger daughter didn't mean to do it. The grief-stricken parents declared they didn't want to lose Claire as well. They hoped their daughter could be helped, treated, and released so as not to ruin her life in half. Such provocative statements drew criticism from local residents and others. Now the Miller family was attracting even more attention thanks to the influence of the media. People were perplexed and outraged that the parents could calmly forgive their younger daughter for killing her older one and even support her. They demanded that the 14-year-old killer be jailed for a long time so that Claire could fully understand the gravity of her crime. Other comments began to appear under the video of the murder. Some supported Claire. Someone started distributing downloaded videos from her account, claiming that Claire had stained a glove and a giraffe with her sister's blood and then published them. This all sparked a lot of rumors and discussions. All of this upset the parents. There was a lot of debate in the comments, including from Claire's acquaintances. Many claimed that the videos with the glove and the giraffe never appeared on the killer's page and that those who published them simply wanted to gain popularity amid the growing public outcry. Many believed that these recordings were someone else's and had nothing to do with Helen's death. Claire's parents were attacked online. The police were forced to intervene. The police issued an official statement that when they arrived, Dollar was on their street, but they did not see the bloody latex gloves and the stuffed giraffe. Claire had nothing in her hands. She was only trying to wash them off. Blood in the snow. Now important legal questions arose. According to Pennsylvania law, all murders committed are tried as adults. This was the case with rare exceptions. Therefore, despite Claire's young age, she faced a serious sentence. Her parents were outraged and eached. They did not want to lose their youngest daughter as well. The mother and father believe that all this happened due to the worsening of Claire's mental health problems due to the lockdown and the lack of psychological support, ICOL support. Therefore, the parents requested an assessment of her condition. The lawyer supported the parents' line. The defense attorney tried to get the court's decision reviewed. They wanted to try Claire as an adult and transfer the trial to the juvenile justice system. In his opinion, imprisonment in a juvenile prison would give her the opportunity for rehabilitation and mental health care in Spear. If convicted as an adult, Claire could face life imprisonment or, even worse, the death penalty. Of course, this caused indignation not only among the defendant's family, but also among the public. The lawyer insisted on Claire's insanity. At their request, several expert examinations were conducted, which revealed that the girl suffered from mental disorders. According to psychiatrists, Claire had a psychotic episode that evening. She even tried to slit her throat, then switched to a vision and began cutting it with a knife. Claire stopped only when she realized it wasn't a vision but her sister, and she showed no signs of life. One of the experts stated that 14-year-old Claire was still a child. Her brain was not fully developed and could have been unaware of what was happening, perceiving it as a game. The patrol officers who responded to the Miller's call testified at the trial. They said that Claire cried periodically but overall behaved normally and did not become hysterical. They did not believe the girl had mental disorders or was insane. Important questions regarding the death penalty in the United States were raised. People considered it absurd that many serial killers waited decades for the death penalty to be carried out. In the end, they died not from the injection, but from old age, never seeing their execution due to endless appeals and challenges to the verdicts for each incident. They believed that Claire couldn't be put on the same level as these monsters, and that she didn't deserve the death penalty for just one murder, which she committed during a seizure. Moreover, the sentence would be carried out real quickly here, since there would be nothing to review in one case. The students at Claire's school took the NDA painfully. Psychologists were invited in to work with the children and help them survive the terrifying event. Many wanted it to be over as quickly as possible. Some particularly aggressive people believed that not only Claire, but also her parents should bear responsibility for the murder. In their opinion, the mother and father forced the younger daughter to care for and help the older one. Claire sometimes accompanied her sister to the hospital. It seemed that Claire couldn't like this. Gradually, dissatisfaction with this situation built up, and anger or even hatred could spill over. The public perceived Claire as a victim of sorts in this situation. She was being used. Her parents forced her to care for her sister, shifting their problems onto their younger daughter. Claire was too pliable and couldn't refuse, and the resentment within her was building up and could lead to mental health issues. Her peace of mind eventually faltered and she simply snapped. People demanded that the heartless parents who exploited their daughter be held accountable, but there was no basis for this. The parents didn't wield weapons, didn't provoke conflict between their daughters, and didn't force Claire to kill. The mother and father were going through a difficult time at the time, and now they were forced to defend themselves against public attacks and accusations. But the Miller family also had defenders. Friends described the couple positively as a prosperous and decent family. The Millers gave their children love, care, and warmth. They grew up in an atmosphere of mutual understanding and support. Friends claimed they didn't regularly use the KLR for their sister. They mostly looked after their eldest daughter themselves, and Claire only offered assistance on her own initiative. The sisters were close. Psychiatric experts paid close attention to the case and began actively studying it. Statistically, if it involves the murder of a person with special needs or a disability, it usually occurs at the hands of a family member or guardian. The fact is, relatives grow tired of caring for a helpless family member they love dearly and gradually become exhausted. For them, they become a burden, which deep down they want to get rid of, but don't openly admit it. At some point, patience runs out, the person breaks down, and can kill the person under their care. Could Claire have seen her sister as a burden, an unbearable burden, which she decided to get rid of, to make life easier for the family? Some believed this was entirely possible. The girl believed that the family's life would improve. Perhaps deep down, the parents also believed this, and could have pushed her younger daughter to this decision. Or perhaps Claire saw this act as an opportunity to help her sister, Helen, escape her suffering. Some psychiatrists who examined the case also noticed other alarming signs in the defendant's behavior. Claire may have been jealous of her older sister's relationship with her parents, as Helen received more attention from her mother and father, while the younger daughter lacked it. All of this was exacerbated by Claire's rebellious adolescence. A detailed analysis of the defendant's TikTok videos revealed that Claire was not as harmless as many acquaintances believed. To determine her motive, psychiatrists analyzed the videos she posted on her account before deleting them. One of her last videos addressed to her father was particularly controversial. It became clear that Claire had encountered a lack of understanding from adults and was deeply upset by it. It seemed her father negatively perceived his daughter's interest in Japanese culture, anime, and dancing, and did not accept her hobbies. which were a source of relief in her difficult life. He advised her to focus more on her studies and her loved ones. Many of Claire's posts referenced violent anime and video games. One was about a Japanese video game in which a creature forces high school students to kill each other. Her page contained posts with screenshots from a Korean comic about a young mentally ill man who was abused by his uncle and then in the army. Abune. Claire also frequently turned to characters from the manga comic Death Note. Her fascination with such gory content at such a young age was incomprehensible, so it's understandable why her father didn't accept her interests. All of this showed a dark side to Claire, who was successful in her studies, intelligent and creative, but also suffered from mental health issues and could be prone to aggression. Her interest in dangerous games and comics seemed frightening and could ultimately lead to the murder of Halon Un. The suspicion that Claire was in a state of insanity at the time, the researchers indirectly confirmed the violence. During the 911 call, signs of hysteria were clearly audible. Her remark about Michael Myers also seemed strange and inappropriate. Her fascination with horror films at such a young age, coupled with a history of mental illness, could also have played a role. Claire was held out by bail. She was considered especially dangerous. There was a high risk of escape and repeated attacks. In prison, girls received increased attention due to their mental state. There was a high probability that Claire would attempt suicide. A girl had previously admitted to having made similar attempts. A preliminary hearing was scheduled for May 14, 2021. Claire Miller still pleaded not guilty. Yes. The defense attorney requested that the murder case be transferred to juvenile court, which was refused. He began to insist that his client was not guilty by reason of insanity. Bureaucratic difficulties delayed the process. The parents worried that the court would deprive them of their second child if Claire is sentenced to death. However, the prosecution immediately rejected the death penalty. On March 2023, Claire pleaded guilty to third-degree murder as part of a plea deal. Based on all the assessments, she was found to be mentally ill. However, she was not considered insane and could stand trial. However, the presence of mental disabilities allowed her lawyer to exploit certain loopholes in the law. Claire was sentenced to 40 years in prison with the possibility of a parole after 12 years. Her parents hope that Claire will successfully overcome all the difficulties and be released on parole. They also want their daughter to receive the treatment she needs and undergo rehabilitation behind bars. Today, Claire Miller is serving her long sentence within the four walls of a prison cell, where instead of a bright smartphone screen and hundreds of likes, only oppressive silence surrounds her. TikTok deleted her profile, erasing her digital footprint, but it couldn't erase the scars on her parents' souls, who lost two daughters at once on that fateful night. One was murdered, the other became a murderer. Elin, whose life was full of vulnerability and hardship, found peace, leaving behind only the bitter memory of innocence. Wood. Kleja was left alone with the eternal burden of guilt that neither snow nor years of imprisonment could wash away. What really happened in the mind of a 14-year-old girl on that February night? Was it the culmination of carefully concealed madness, the pursuit of likes and popularity, or a passion for gory anime, games, and movies that gave birth to a monster ready to commit the most heinous crime? Let's discuss it in the comments.